So you join me in the back of the van after a busy work week. And I have an engine. This is a HWDA engine. It's a 1.6 petrol, naturally aspirated from Ford. Comes from a few different models. The reason why we pulled this engine is because it had a timing belt down, but whoever did it didn't do the timing properly, and here's what I suspect happened. This has a floating crank and cam, so basically you can turn this nut here, but if you've not tightened it up enough, the pulley itself will move, or the bolt will move, and you think you're turning it, but you're not, because there's no Woodruff key in the crank. Because he pinned it all up as well, that's what's extra sad. And then when he went to go and rotate it, obviously the top half of the engine moved and the bottom half didn't, and then he tried to start it. All these Ford cranks are done up to 1,000 Newton meters, but essentially turning, dead stop. Won't go any more than that. This is the crank actually turning. So there's something inside the engine which is locked up. I've got the spark plugs out as well, so it should turn extra easy. Resistance, dead stop. So shamefully, this engine is no bueno. I also did pull out the spark plugs, and one of the ends of the spark plug was missing. There's another telltale sign. Plus I looked up the ignition timing on my scan tool. It was just completely off. It wasn't even remotely near top dead center for cylinder 1, which is where I thought it should be, thereabouts. But it wasn't near any of the cylinders. It was just like no combustion cycle came near that degree of rotation. So I'm just going to pull the head off this and see exactly what happened. So let's disassemble some stuff, These engines also have this horrific double crank, and they have a stretch belt, so you've got your air conditioning belt here and your alternator belt there. There's a special tool to help fit that. Just buy it. Honestly, the amount of time you'll spend faffing trying to get that belt on. It's possible though. If you don't have the money, you can do it with like a pry bar on the coolant pulley and a load of silicone oil to help ease it on. Your timing will have a lot more extra bolts than mine does. This has already been partly removed. Might as well just detension that now, eh? You would never ever usually do this. Usually part of the timing procedure for this engine is you remove the valve cover, put a bar in the back of the cams, put a locking pin in here, etc, etc. You have to time up the engine first. You can't just whip off the timing belt, or you will end up in a world of hurt. Shame really. Brand new crank bolt going in the bin. Same with that. I wouldn't reuse anything on a engine that's had like a pretty severe timing failure. I think you'd come to regret that decision. Okay, let's take off the valve cover. I said valve cover. While we're here, we'll just remove this engine mount. Two little bolts on the side. Yeah, just there. There's a little stud which is stopping it from coming off. You could just remove the cam sprocket, but I'm trying to just leave as much of that in place, because I may use studs like this again on other engines or whatever. There we go, got all that out. So there were the bolts in the front that you saw, and there are a couple here on the side, and then your stud as well. For the valve cover, there are many little 8mm bolts all over it. They don't come out, they stay in the valve cover. There we have it, the inside of the engine. To get to some of the head bolts, you just need to remove these cams. Go. Just break loose the other cam while we're here. There we go. It's a shame really, because other than this the engine's in pretty good condition. It was well looked after. Worry about that one in a minute. If you're going to reassemble this, you'd make sure you kept these in order. But I'm not rebuilding it. Okay. Looks like it's going to be one of those. I think you have to break loose the little cam sprocket to get this off. Again, you would never do this on an engine that you were keeping. I just want to get the thing apart. I'm not fussed if any of it breaks. Woo! There you go. So now that should, in theory, come out. No, I really do think that you need to take off the end of these sprockets even. It catches just underneath. They like to trick you there, making you think you can get it off, but you can't. Get a little spanner on the counter hold there, hold it in place. That's number one. Oh, excuse me there, friend. Move you over a bit. Counter hold the second one, 20mm. All that faffing around, might as well have just pulled it off in the first place. There we go, one cam removed. Second cam removed. I'm just going to break loose all these now. Tight. Last two, I think. There we go. sorry. Give it a little bash there. Again, you'd never really use a impact gun on these. All the head bolts are out. I think all I need to do now is just loosen up the inlet manifold. So right in the middle is the only bolt that's going to be a pain. You can't just get a socket on it, so I have to do that one with a spanner. There we go. Oh, it's a long bolt, goodness me. Come on. Yeah, there we go, got it. Alright then. Swap tool. Yeah. I mean, really, that's it disconnected, whether it wants to be or not. So in theory, we've got a little cover down here that's going to hold the head on still with a few little bolts. But we're getting real close now to just pulling the head off this thing. Appears to be 8mm. Ooh. This one I don't want to know. It's going to fight us to the last. Goodness me, that's tight. Ford have got this incredible ability for doing up bolts 1,000 times tighter than all other manufacturers, and somehow they don't snap. How they manage it, I couldn't tell you. For a tiny little 8mm bolt, that is ridiculous. Seems to have some sort of a, it's thread locked in there with the red stuff. See just the remnants of it there. Crazy. Right, you should want to live a new life somewhere now, but you won't because you're being held on by that one tiny stupid bolt. There's one thing you learn in car mechanics, there's always one more bolt, or two more bolts, or three more bolts. Oh, don't you fight me as well. go. There's one more bolt down the bottom, but we'll just bend that out of the way. Usually, if you were going to do this, you would use a dead blow mallet, like a nice soft one. But we're not exactly keeping it. Silly inlet is still holding on. There we go. Well, now it's just being rude and uncooperative. But we have ways of making them talk. It's not really the engine, it's me. Can't pull it off straight. Attempt number 2. Look at that. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh no. Oh, that is brutal. I'm sure you see it as well as I do. Oh my goodness, that, friends, is not normal. Oh, neither's that. Oh, no, 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 no. Ah, dear. Catastrophic enginus damages. That's the Latin name for this. Absolute mess. Oh, dear. Yeah, that's roughing it. So just inspect the cylinders with a little bit of light on. Goodness me, there's some broken bits of something in that one too. Yeah, that big old chunk of stuff, that ain't good. That's not supposed to be in the cylinder. I mean, that one there's definitely the worst one, isn't it? And some bits of spark plug. It's mangled the spark plug to pieces. Flipping heck. Ouchies. So, if you fancy doing a DIY timing belt, just make sure it's not on the Ford. This is what catches people out. It's got a floating crank. So you think you're turning the crank, because part of this timing procedure is you move the crank and the cams independently. So I think that someone thought they were moving the crank, but they weren't. I mean, it's pretty tough to screw up the top of it because you can actually see it, but you can't see the crank inside the engine case. That is such a shame. But what can you do? That is beyond what we would rebuild, I think. Well, I'm just going to finish the video here, but I thought I'd show you the cylinder head. You can see we've got 2 smashed off valves here. Damage to the cylinder head. This cylinder here somehow escaped scot-free, no damage. This one here, that valve bent off and got wedged underneath this valve, which kept that valve closed. And then this one here pretty much escaped scot-free as well. Very, very bad. Well, if you have any horror stories of your own, put them down in the comments section. Hopefully nothing worse than this.